Xavi has decided to stay at Barcelona as their head coach until the end of the 2025 season. Xavi pulled a fat U-turn on Barcelona and on everybody, in my opinion, after convincing us for the last 3 months that he wasn't going to stay at Barcelona after this season. But after having a talk with the sporting director Deco and an emergency meeting at President Joan Laporta's house, Xavi stated that he believes that the project at Barcelona is unfinished and expressed his commitment to continue working on said project. Laporta has also expressed his pleasures about Xavi's decision staying at the club and highlighting the importance of stability for the club's success, which honestly is a little ironic, but we'll get to that later. But Xavi originally made the decision to step down as head coach after a 5-3 loss to Villarreal early in the season, and after going 13 games unbeaten since then, the vibes were honestly high at Barcelona, which then started to get Laporta and the rest of the board at Barcelona to convince Xavi to stay. But then, as of last week, there was obviously that back-to-back losses in the Champions League and the 3-2 loss in the El Clásico on Sunday. But regardless of those results, Laporta is in favor of Xavi staying, and Xavi apparently now has no problem staying at Barcelona. So let's talk about why he decided to stay and the potential factors that made him want to do it. Let's look at it from Barcelona's standpoint first. Now, it was important for Barcelona to keep Xavi as a coach due to their financial issues recently with the club and not being able to afford another manager to replace Xavi at the end of the season. The main candidates for this position were De Zerbi, Flick, and Rafa Marquez. Rafa Marquez would have actually probably beaten the other two candidates because of the fact that there were going to be no financial obligations in terms of paying out any compensations. So it's very, very weird, in my opinion, the fact that Barcelona wanted Xavi to step down because they were not happy with the performances that were being displayed this season, at least in the beginning of this season. And now all of a sudden they were like, oh, Xavi, please stay. We want you to stay. I honestly would have not have come back after Barcelona did him like that. The club, the media, they were all backlashing Xavi and the team for their bad performances. And yeah, they were bad. They were inconsistent. They weren't getting the results they wanted, but they were still in top 4 and they were still contending for the title. But yeah, in my opinion, I think it was the fact that ever since that Xavi has announced that he was going to step down, Barcelona were just not able to find a replacement for him. Instead of going against him and continuing to find a replacement, they are backing Xavi so then he could stay for at least another year so they can have more time to figure out a solution. And let's be honest, with the candidates like Thomas Tuchel, Hansi Flick, De Zerbi, and especially Rafa Marquez, were they actually going to do a better job than what Xavi's done so far with Barcelona? I mean, Xavi took over in 2021, replacing Ronald Koeman after Barcelona were in 9th place at the time, and Xavi came in and ended up finishing in 2nd place. And in the next season, Xavi's first full season in charge of Barcelona, they won the title and the Spanish Super Cup. Now, all of a sudden, a couple of bad performances and then everybody was against him. Like, I don't blame Xavi for saying that he was going to step down. I mean, if your own board is not going to back you and then all the Spanish media is just coming at you after some bad performances, after you brought him a Spanish Cup and a La Liga title in just your 2nd year and your 1st year fully in charge of a club, come on, man. Also, this season, bringing Barcelona to their first quarterfinal appearance since 2020, bringing in youngsters such as Cubarsí and Lamine Yamal. Xavi has been doing amazing things for the club. So the board at Barcelona have realized how big of a mistake it was for them to not back Xavi and instead to encourage him to stay, which is also probably the main reason that he decided to stay. Xavi said that within these last 3 months, the support from the president and the board of directors have been pretty high, and he has got the energy to remain at the club for at least the remainder of his contract. And building a team with the players like Cubarsí, like Araujo, Gavi, Pedri, Lamine Yamal, Frankie de Jong, this project is far from over. Now, from Xavi's perspective, you have to think about it. From everything I just said, since January, he had to deal with a very cruel and very unpleasant atmosphere and environment at Barcelona. He said that he was mentally exhausted from all the things that the media has been putting on the news, saying of his bad performances, that they wanted Xavi out. The president and the board weren't even on his side. So how could you, as Xavi, as a Barcelona legend, be motivated to continue doing your job at Barcelona? You can't. Like, you literally can't do it. Even though you brought them a league title last season, even though you brought them to a Champions League quarterfinal, even though you won the Super Cup, nobody's on your side after a couple inconsistent performances. I think it's very, very harsh. And so I think the fact that Xavi wanted to step down at the time and announced that he was going to step down, I think was just a real eye-opener for the club, for the media, for the team themselves. Because ever since he announced him stepping down, the club has been performing a lot better, even in the Champions League, even though they lost in this El Clásico recently. recently, Barcelona are playing a lot better than what they have been earlier this season. And now he's receiving a lot of support from President Laporta and the board of directors because of his project building a team with the likes of Cubarsí, Araujo, Gavi, Pedri, Lamine Yamal, Frankie de Jong. Now he has the energy, he has the encouragement, he has the backing of the board to continue doing his job properly. In my personal opinion, Xavi wasn't wrong to announce his departure from the club in January because I was reading everything that they were saying about him and it just really sucked. And I honestly, for after 3 months of Xavi convincing us that he wasn't going to come back to Barcelona no matter what happened, even if they did win the Champions League, it really convinced me that he wasn't going to come back. I didn't expect this U-turn at all, in my opinion. But honestly, I'm very, very happy and very glad that Xavi decided to stay at Barcelona because I think that he is the best man for the job. I don't think Flick was going to do a better job. De Serbi, Rafa Marquez was definitely not going to do a good job. I don't think any other manager would have done a better job than what Xavi is doing so far. Well, maybe except Pep Guardiola. But Xavi is a Barca man. He is a Barca legend. He's been at the club since birth, pretty much. So he knows the ins and outs. He knows the Barca way, and he knows how to get through these players. The players support him. They have his back. So what does this mean actually going forward with Xavi and the club and the coaching staff in the background? Because Barcelona had a lot of complaints about Xavi and his terms of training and the strength and conditioning, saying that they weren't satisfied with it. There have been a lot of sources saying that Julio Dos, who was part of Antonio Conte's staff at Chelsea, is likely to come in to work on the strength and conditioning at the club. And also, according to other sources, even though Xavi does deny it, that some of his assistants, including his brother Oscar, doesn't meet the requirements or doesn't have the experience needed to complement Xavi's work. Barcelona and Xavi have to figure out what they're going to be doing to their squad. They still need to look for a center defensive mid. They still have to find a proper fullback and decide on whether they want to extend the loans of João Felix and João Cancelo. In my opinion, they shouldn't be extending either of their contracts. They honestly both been horrendous for the club, in my opinion. João Cancelo especially costing, I think, Barcelona most of their defeats in recent times. They're really missing that Sergio Busquets type of player in that CDM role, but they don't know what their financial situation is going to be for next season. That means that players are probably going to be leaving the club next season to create some sort of wiggle room financially. I mean, it just seems like after every loss, there always seems to be rumors about players like De Jong or Koundé or Araujo leaving the club, that they want to sell them because of the mistakes that they're making and whatnot. I don't think that those are the right ideas, right? I mean, like, even though they could probably cash out and get a lot of money off of those players, selling big stars like De Jong and Araujo is just not a good move, in my opinion, for Barcelona. Let me know what you think Barcelona should do in terms of their players, who they should sell, who they should bring in. And let me know if you think that Xavi's decision on staying at Barcelona until the end of the 2025 season is a good idea. You already know my opinion. I would love to hear yours. Thank you so much for tuning into this video on SoFlo Soccer, and I'll see you in the next one.